forget who first wrote this article. You said who it was, right?
We're referencing an article from originally from Steve Lasson of the Athlon Sports, but it was basically a rewritten on 24/7 Sports by Brad Crawford, basically headlining the top 10 most lethal rosters in college football. And so basically what Steve did was he took the 5-year recruiting average of every single team and basically just ranked them based on that and kind of as an overall measure of the roster strength. And Clemson came in at number 7.
Numero 7.
So Clemson has the 7th most lethal, in quotation marks, roster in all of college football. Yeah, I think they're slotted right behind Texas and forgot. I think Texas was tied with somebody else, but
Texas and Texas A&M are tied at 5.
Okay, makes sense. Yeah. So, and the reason why we bring it up because I think there's a huge split in the Clemson fan base about how good Clemson's roster really is. There's because when you point to all of the deficiencies that have cropped up over the past couple of seasons, it's been hard for fans to really put into perspective how talented the roster actually is and whether the guys we have right now are really that good or capable of being that good.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of wanted to bring it because I thought it was interesting. I mean, we knew that it's basically kind of like the 24/7 Sports team talent composite, but instead of using the individual players recruiting ranking, it's just an average of your overall finish each year. Yeah. So it's kind of like a different way of looking at it. But either way, Clemson comes in as a top 10 team in terms of team talent, which they've been the past couple of seasons on both the composite and this new lethal rating or whatever you want to call it.
Lethal.
Because it's it's an interesting question, and I wanted to get and you guys in the comment section get your thoughts in as well. How talented is Clemson's roster really?
In my opinion,
you as well. Yeah.
Get your comments in the comment section right now. I want to see how everybody's thinking. In my opinion, Clemson's roster is elite at most positions, right? Within every roster, you have your shortcomings. You got your positions that are a little bit thinner than others, right? We've talked about it on this show about how we're kind of thin at defensive end. We're kind of a little thin at linebacker as well. Like when you see who kind of the depth that left Clemson and transferred out, we still got those big name guys, those big name starters, right? But some of those guys, some of that depth, transferred out, right? There's a lot of talk of Clemson wide receivers and can they step up? Can they get the job done? I've read several articles this past offseason, about, kind of the defense refocusing, right? And really the defensive backs being held accountable by the coaching staff and, just flat out saying we weren't good enough last year and we need to get better. So stuff like that, when stuff like that comes out and you hear your coaching staff talking like that, and you got some fresh blood on offense and you're talking about, a fresh new offense that definitely suits the quarterback that you currently have that just became your brand new starter, literally tailored fit to him, the kind of offense that Garrett Riley runs. When you take all that into account in my mind and you think about the talent that Clemson does have, do we have some shortcomings? Yes, but we're elite at running back, okay? I think we're getting better, a lot better at offensive line. I think a lot of people don't realize the talent that we have at offensive line, and I think we will continue to build the depth there. Wide receiver, there's definitely some question marks there, right? There's some young guys that are going to have to step up. But our recruiting doesn't lie, right? Average signing class over the last 5 years is 7.8 for Clemson. 7.8 in the country. So that puts us at 7th in the country in recruiting over the last 5 seasons. There's not very many teams that can say that, right? Only
Right.
6 teams are ahead of us in recruiting over the last 5 seasons. That's huge. Clemson's roster is littered with talent. We just got to turn the corner. We've had a couple seasons where things didn't go quite our way. We had a lot of injuries. Guys haven't, developed for whatever reason at certain positions. But I don't think you can argue with Clemson's talent. They have one of the most talented rosters in the country. Um, it's just a fact. Now, there's some depth issues at certain positions that I talked about, but if you're talking about sheer talent, uh, I wouldn't take very many other rosters out there over Clemson's. And I think even those 6 rosters ahead of us, Clemson's got enough talent to compete with any of those guys. So it's all about putting it together, right? It's all about getting the right scheme, the coaches getting on the same page, and putting it all together on the field. But from a talent standpoint, Clemson's about as elite as you can get, right? We're not going to recruit number 1 in the country every single year. It's just never have, probably never will. Maybe, but it hasn't happened yet. And we've had a lot of success on the field. And part of it is the way that Clemson recruits and how they divvy out their offers and kind of their philosophy on that. So some of that is that. But at the end of the day, from my standpoint, from where I'm looking, it's working out pretty well so far. So,
yeah. And I think those are all great points because I think there's just been I think a lot of the fan base has kind of been jaded and kind of pessimistic about the ability of these actual the players that Clemson has on the roster. And I mean, when you put things into perspective, the average is 7.8 over the last 5 seasons.
7.8.
I believe that's got to be one of the highest 5-year average, under Dabo. I mean, because that includes the historic, at least for Clemson, the historic 2020 and 2021 recruiting classes.
Mm-hmm.
And well, I think there are some guys in that class that have not panned out yet and need to step up and will have to take bigger roles this year. I think that the overall quality of the roster is on paper it's better than it's ever been, and so I think you go back to that 2016 national championship team. That team was not overly littered with 4- and 5-star talent. I believe Bud Elliott does this thing called the blue chip ratio every year, and it basically measures how much of your roster is made up of 4- and 5 stars.
Okay.
No program since he's been doing it, no program that's been under 50% in the blue chip ratio has ever won a national championship. But Clemson is the lowest. That 2016 Clemson team was the lowest since he's been doing it. I believe they were at 52%, 4- and 5 stars. I believe Clemson's blue chip ratio right now is 67. It's high 60s.
Right.
And so if you look at that from that perspective, Clemson is definitely more talented than they have been. And that 2015 team was really close to actually breaking that trend, because I believe in 2015, the year they lost to Bama in the national championship, they were 48%. And so that was the team. That team was really close. So, and I say all that to say that Clemson, during under Dabo Swinney, has been able to develop talent at a really, really high level. And so I think the gripe that fans have about the team and whether they're talented or not, really, I think their frustrations are misplaced. And I think the difference between what Clemson was able to do then and what they're doing now is that development. And yeah, that seems like an obvious thing, but I think it's kind of gone. I feel like we don't talk about it enough. And I think the biggest thing for Clemson going forward is being able to coach up the guys that you have. And this staff has seen a lot of turnover the past 3 years.
Yep.
So with the guys, especially the greener guys that are settling into their new roles, I think the biggest thing for Clemson is those coaches, the Tyler Grishams, the Thomas Austins, the Wes Goodwin, settling into their new roles and becoming and growing as coaches.
Right.
And I think they have a they have a real. I think the message has been sent this offseason that there's an imperative need to
Yeah,
to get some, get better results. I think that
absolutely.
obviously I think the Brandon Streeter firing, especially within the context of everything we've learned since then
Yeah,
about how that whole thing went down, there's a lot of pressure on this coaching staff, and so what they say, pressure makes diamonds, all of that.
that's
Uh,
right.
that's what you have to hope with. I don't think that the problem is talent. Um, I will say I don't think the wide receiver room is quite as talented as it's been in years past, but I think there's a
No,
lot of guys in this room that can play that haven't been able to show it. If you think of Adam Randall is as physically impressive as a wide receiver as I've seen come through Clemson in a long time,
mhm.
and he unfortunately had that injury in spring and wasn't able to fully work his way back. Into full, at least at full health. A guy like Troy Stellato. People forget about Troy Stellato. He was a high
Trying to
four-star
tell you,
guy
man. Trying to
that
tell
Clemson
you.
won a highly profiled, battle over against Ohio State for.
Yeah,
And he spent his entire career injured.
right.
A guy that you could use in the slot that has true NFL potential at slot receiver.
Hmm.
Um, Bo Collins has been probably Clemson's most steady receiver, the past couple of seasons.
Absolutely.
But the injuries is the problem.
Yeah.
We all know how good Antonio Williams is. We love Antonio Williams. He's got a lot of ups. He's got a lot of upside. He showed a lot of it this season, and he's only going to get better. Um,
Hmm.
but guys like that, and then you have the young guys that are coming in that they're high on. Between Ronan Hannafin and Noble Johnson and Tyler Brown. There is room for a really big season from the Clemson wide receivers. I think there's a lot of guys in this room that will be able to that can play, especially given the new offense and everything. So I think having that kind of that renewed energy, I think is going to be huge for this entire room. And I think Clemson fans, we really need to see it just for the fan base's mental health. The Clemson brands itself as wide receiver U and all of that.
Yeah.
But they haven't been that.
Not for the past two seasons, right?
Not for the past 2 seasons. So
Not for the past 2 seasons, not even close. There's definitely some room for improvement at the wide receiver position. But with that said, we got a lot of young guys in there, right? That can step up.
I didn't even mention Cole Turner.
Yeah, Cole Turner. Good Lord, look how he came on last year. I mean, you got him and Antonio Williams on the field. Bo Collins has been consistent when he hasn't been injured, right? He's been our most consistent wide receiver, I think, anyway. Not that he doesn't go out there and make mistakes and stuff like that, but he's got a ton of room for improvement. I think he could have a big season this upcoming season, right? Get healthy in the offseason. He could definitely have a big season. And you talked about some of the younger guys coming up. They can actually absolutely step up and really help this team. It's going to be a fresh offense. There's going to be new passing schemes out there. We got two horses in the back that are definitely going to loosen up those secondaries to help those wide receivers get open and help Cade Klubnik in the passing game and stuff like that. Especially with how Garrett Riley, I imagine, is going to run the ball. It's going to be a different look on offense. And it's been a rough 2 years for the Clemson offense. But what I will say is I wouldn't be too down on them, right? I think we forget how injured this team was back in 2021, right? I know that was a rough year. Look, it was hard to watch. We were ready to see Tony Elliott go. We were happy he took the Virginia job, right? We thought we needed to move on from that. And unfortunately, Brandon Streeter got, the job and had some improvement, but not the improvement that was necessary, right? But like you previously stated, the statement has been made. The bell has been sound. The warnings have been given. Dabo Swinney is looking for results from his coaching staff, because what you can't say is Clemson doesn't have talent. They've won, as you pointed out, with far less talent. talent is not the problem in Clemson, South Carolina. Talent has not been the problem for the past 2 seasons in Clemson. So anybody saying that it's talent, it's not. It is not talent. Coaching has been the problem. Injuries have been the problem. And that's not an excuse. Everybody deals with injuries, right? It happens. But, I think Dabo Swinney has fired his warning shots, and we'll see what happens, And, I think it's good that, a program like Florida State and Miami and some of these others, in the ACC are getting some hype, especially Florida State. They're getting a lot of national attention, right? That's great. I like it. I welcome it. I enjoy it because that lights a fire, right? That's a little bit of outside pressure that you're not just going to roll in and be in the ACC championship every year. You're not just going to roll out and, bludgeon every ACC team like you did in 2018, right, with a Trevor Lawrence-led team. So all of that stuff is good. And, just to reiterate, like talent is not the problem at Clemson. It's not. We got more talent right now than we had definitely in 2016, right? Maybe not in 2018, depending on how you look at it. But, at this point in time, Clemson is at the height of its talent when it comes to the football field. So there's just, they got to put it together in the coaching staff and look no further. The reason that I'm so adamant that we have plenty of talent on the field and that it has been coaching is look at a couple of the teams ahead of us, Jordan. Texas A&M, what have they done lately? What's their best season? 8-4?
Yeah, unless you count what they won the Orange Bowl in that COVID season, but
yeah,
there's Kellen Mond isn't. It's funny because Texas A&M fans were fed up with Kellen Mond, and he won so many games for them, and then as soon as he's gone, they
just fall apart, right?
Precipitous drop off.
Yeah, Texas Longhorns, how's that worked out for them, right?
Yeah.
LSU, outside of that, that 2019 season, and last year they had a pretty good season as well. But I just say that to reiterate that coaching matters. You can have all the talent in the world. You have to have good coaches on the field. Scheme matters. Coaching matters. Development matters. These guys can come in with all the talent in the world, but if they're not developed properly and they're not put in the right situations on game day, it don't matter how talented your roster is. You're going to get your butt kicked.
Yep.
And that's been part of Clemson's problem the past couple of years. So we definitely have the talent out there. No doubt about it in my mind. We are plenty talented enough to win another national title in the near future. Hopefully Klubnik brings one home for us.
I love that.
Well, we'll
certainly
see.
Love that.
Yeah, it'd be great.